It says live. I reckon I'm live. Hey, my friend, I hope you're having a great afternoon. It's Tuesday evening, and I just wanted to get on here and share something. I was actually practicing um, Facebook Live. Make sure I can get on Facebook and YouTube. I'll put this on Facebook shortly. But thanks for your prayers for Barbara Griffin, Regina's mom. She had been sick for a couple of weeks, and last Friday she called Regina, and she had been sick, and Regina was planning on going over there, and she called early and said, "You need to come take me to the emergency room of the doctor." And so Regina went on over there and tried to get her into the doctor, and waited a couple hours. She got sicker, and so she just called the ambulance and took her to Crestwood. They found out she had some blockage. She had some bowel blockage. That was the serious problems that was making her sick. But they also found out she had cancer, and so it was pretty bad. And we're waiting to hear from the oncologist and to tell us a little bit more about what the prognosis is on that. She's feeling better, feeling a lot better, and just kind of waiting to hear from the cancer doctor. But a couple, I guess it was, I don't know, what was it, Sunday? What is today? Tuesday? I don't know. Maybe it was either Saturday. I guess it was Sunday. Sunday evening, I went over. I've been over a couple of times, several times a day, just to check on her. And I went to Crestwood. I hate Crestwood. I mean, the people are wonderful, but that hospital, you got to park. They need more parking. Crestwood Hospital needs more parking. They need a parking garage, and it's laid out crazy. You know, if you're in a certain section, you go in, you got to walk, half a mile to get to the elevator to go up to go there. Just that's my 2 cents worth. I don't like Crestwood. I'm partial to Huntsville Hospital anyway. There are other reasons I like Huntsville Hospital, but not the least of which my brothers were born there. But I went over and I walked the Green Mile, from the front door of Crestwood to the elevator, all around through you got to go through the cafeteria to get, you walk through the cafeteria all the way around, get to the elevator, and take the elevator up to the third floor. And I got off the elevator, and there's this little old lady. I mean, this little old feeble lady. She's in a wheelchair, and she's got a cane, and she's using the cane like a paddle, and she's using the cane, and she's paddling down the hall, caning down the hall toward the elevator. And I asked her, I said, "Ma'am, do you need me to push you somewhere, take you somewhere?" She said, "Well, if you don't mind, if you would." And I said, "Well, if you don't care for me leaning on the wheelchair, I'll be glad to take you." And so I took her down on the elevator and took her down, and we talked on the way, and her husband was up there, and her name was Miss Carter. I didn't find that out till later, but she was saying, "Yeah, we don't have family around," and so it was just her and him. And so anyway, I took her down, and the security guard took her to her car. Well, I got to thinking, I wish I'd have got her name. I got her husband's name. Maybe I could find him, talk to him. But I don't have family. Maybe he's lonely or something, And I'll brighten your day. And so anyway, I talked to the nurses up there, figured out who he was, and his name was Mr. Carter. And he's an older gentleman. He's a couple of doors down from Barbara. And so I went in. Every time I've gone in to see this guy, he's on the phone. I have probably seen him 10 times over the last few days, 2 or 3 times a day. And every time I've gone in to see him, he's been on the phone. So I mean, he'll be talking to somebody, and I'll come in and say, "I gotta go. I gotta go." As that preacher guy, that Baptist preacher guy, has come back in here, and he's a real nice fella. He goes to Twickenham Church of Christ, and he says, I talked to his wife. I talked to him. He says, I asked him, I said, "Man, are you a Christian? Do you know for sure you're saved?" He said, "Oh, Jesus is my Lord and Savior." And, I know what Church of Christ believe, but he also has been to some kind of, what was it? Assembly of God or something like that. I mean, if I didn't know better, I think he's as mixed up as a termite and a yo-yo, but he seemed to be all right. He gave a good testimony of trust in Christ. And so he was a retired math professor talked about living in Connecticut and living up in Boston, and I'd go in and talk to him every chance I get when I was over there just to stop in there. But we got to talk about stuff. We got to talk about the Bible. We was talking about who do you think wrote Hebrews? And I said, well, I used to think Paul did, but I'm not sure. He said, I think Apollos did, and we talked about that. We talked about different things that I mean, I could tell he'd spent some time in the Bible, but I was telling him about the fact that, and we were talking about David and talking about David and Goliath. I said, if you read that story, you find that David never saw Goliath until he went out there to fight with him. Now, every story I've read, comics or books or other stories or, movies that you see or cartoons that you see, it's always David comes out and there's Goliath out there, and David sees Goliath and David says, oh, well, I'll go fight him. I'll go fight him. But I don't think David saw Goliath until he went out at the final act to go out there and kill him. Now, if you read the story, and I wanted to share this with you because I thought it was pretty cool that what I put on here is it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. It wasn't a matter of, hey, he's big, I think I can whip him. It was a matter of, hey, my God is bigger than any problem I'm going to face. My God is bigger than any problem. I don't have to know. You read the story, and after we get through, go read the story. It's in 1 Samuel 17, I believe it is, and it says there that David goes and talks to his brothers, and he's there talking to his brother, and he hears Goliath, and so he hears him. And he says, "Who in the heck is that?" And he said, "Why don't somebody go out there and whoop him? Why don't somebody go out there and dot his eyes?" And his older brother said, "Well, you just come over here you just being proud. You just came over here to see the battle." And I've always thought, what battle? There's no battle going on. But it was the 40th day. You read the story. Goliath had come out for 39 days. 40 is the number of testing in the Bible. And you can go find that. Jesus was tempted for 40 days, and you can find it. 40 is the number of testing. And on the 40th day, nobody, King Saul and nobody in the army of Israel would go out to fight Goliath. So David shows up on the 40th day. So he's talking to his brother. He's behind the lines, maybe over the hill crest there. And he's talking to his brothers, and he hears Goliath. Goliath was out there cursing God and cursing Israel and, making fun of them and yelling at them and all kinds of stuff. They said, so why don't somebody go out there and shut that guy up? And David's brother said, you just down here to hear the battle. David said, somebody needs to go whoop him. And Joab, I think it was, or somebody heard him and took him to King Saul. Now, King Saul was the king who was supposed to go out and fight. If you read the story and you read where the children of Israel chose Saul for king, they wanted somebody head and shoulders above everybody else to go out and fight their battles. But he was hiding in the trenches with everybody else. He wasn't going to fight anybody's battle, especially against that big guy called Goliath. Here's David. He's talking to his brothers. He hears Goliath, and the children of Israel, the army, they're fleeing. They're running away, and somebody comes along to David and says, have you seen this guy? Now, you don't ask him if you've seen him, if you could see him from where you're standing. So my point is, I don't think David saw him. David heard him. He heard him cussing, but he didn't see the obstacle that he was about to face. And somebody comes along and said, oh, you have you seen this guy? David's attitude was, I don't need to see this guy. I don't need to see how big the obstacle is because I've got a God that's bigger than any problem I'm ever going to face. And so they take him to King Saul, and Saul says, boy, you can't go fight that fella. He's been a soldier as long as you've been alive. You can't go fight him. You ain't going. He said, no, I'll go. I said, I killed a lion and I killed a bear, and I'll go kill him too. But see, he still hadn't seen him. I don't think he saw him until he finally goes out there and he sees him. And Goliath, Goliath makes fun of him. And it's so bad, Goliath makes fun of him and sits down. And I think what Goliath did was he took his helmet off and he saw David. It's this kid coming to him. You know, he says, am I a dog that you send this kid out here? And so he puts his helmet down and he sits maybe on his helmet or on his rock there, and he's making fun of David. And he says, come to me and I'll feed you to the birds or something like that. But he holds his arm out and says, come to me. I think when he says, come to me, David says, I'm going to come to you. I'm going to come to you. I'm going to come to you in the name of the Lord, and I'm going to put your lights out. I'm coming to you in the name of the Lord. And it says Goliath got up. That's why I said he sat down. He sat down because he was not worried about it. He sat back and laughed. And he saw, this is what y'all are sending to me. This is what y'all are sending to attack me. You got to be kidding. And so when David started to come toward him, Goliath stood up, but I don't think he put his helmet back on. That's why David took the stone and hit him and killed him with a stone. And he cut his head off with his own sword. But that's what I say. When David heard Goliath, he didn't have to see Goliath because he knew God. And I don't know what you're going to face this week. I don't know what you're going to face tomorrow. I don't know what the difficulties are going to be, but I do know this. God is greater than any problem we're ever going to face. We don't have to worry about it. Everybody else in the army, they looked at Goliath and they looked at their resources and they said, we can't do it. David simply heard Goliath and he knew God, and he said, I'll go out there and fight the guy. And he was willing to lay his life on the line. Of course, you know what happened. And hey, read that story. Again, read that story. There's another little passage there at the end of it. 3 times at the end of that chapter, when David goes out to fight Goliath, King Saul says, who's that boy's daddy? And he goes out there and he I think he kills him, come back. But 3 times King Saul says, who's he the son of? And who's his family? And 3 times, Saul says, who's your daddy? And David went out there to Goliath and said, who's your daddy? And he whooped the fire out of him and he killed him. But he didn't have to see the enemy when he knew that God was his strength and God was his power. And all you have to do is trust him. But you see, when you fight with the pygmies during the week, when you fight with the little problems, when you're living for the Lord day by day, the giants are no problem. But you got to learn to fight the little battles so that when the big battles arise, you know how to fight. And it didn't bother David at all. It didn't matter how big the problem was. He knew that God was big enough to take care of him. All right. Well, let's see how this does. Have a great night. Have a great week. And I will see you later on.